shape me, help make me more than what I am.
Reaching the lost.
I'm just here to tell you that God's in the process right now of establishing some bridges.
Teaching the found.
We've got to be able to get a generation from one side over into the next.
With passion.
There is power. Power in the name.
And purpose.
I just had to make up my mind a long time ago that I'm going to do this come hell or high water.
Power for Living with Bishop Dale C. Bronner.
And I want to talk today from the subject of the blessing in the wound. The blessing in the wound. I know very few people, in fact, I don't know anybody who has lived in this life for any period of time who has not experienced a hurt or a wound, perhaps both physically and emotionally. I mean, before a baby can get out of the hospital, they're sticking them with needles. I mean, it hurt me to see them prick my baby's, skin, to inject them and sticking the bottom of their feet and doing all kind of stuff. They just come here sticking you. You start getting pain before you leave out of the hospital. But there is a blessing in the wound. I don't want you to run around mealy-mouthing, griping, complaining, talking about I've been hurt. Who hasn't? Join the club. Let me just put this in perspective for you. Let me put it into perspective for you. If you have been hurt physically and or emotionally, just slip your hand up. In this place, if you've been hurt, if you've experienced hurt some way, physically or emotionally, now look around, because you see, the devil will make you think you're the only one. He'll make you think that everybody else is doing well, nobody else is going through anything, everybody else is laughing and honky-dory, and their marriage is beautiful, and this, that, and the other, and he'll make you think that you're the only one experiencing pain. And see, it's the perception of that then makes you start wondering to yourself, what's wrong with me? I hope that you got a good look at faces all around you of other people that have been hurt. And what I want you to be able to focus on is that there is a blessing in the wound. So that you might have been wounded, but I want to teach you today how to look for the blessing in the wound. A baby doesn't understand that when they are being stuck and then you have to take them back every 2 months and let them get stuck again, that there's a blessing in the wound because they are immunizing the child against potential childhood diseases that could be severe, if not fatal, for them. So that there is a blessing of immunization that begins to build up antibodies against various diseases or infirmities and infections that could be very detrimental to them. There is a blessing in the wound. And if you only look at the wound and talk about, oh, they stuck me, oh, I'm hurting, and not focus on the fact that there's a reason that you're hurting. There is a blessing in the wound. There's a blessing in the wound. And Jacob wrestled with an angel all night long, an angel of the Lord all night long, and he got wounded in the process. And in fact, this wound was so deep that he walked with a limp for the rest of his life. There are some things that God will let you go through in your life as a marker that this was a turning point in your life, or when something significant changed, that there is a blessing in the wound. And so don't just sit around and sucking your thumb and having a pity party talking about I've been hurt and I've been wounded. Listen, learn to look for the blessing in the wound. In every wounding situation, there is a potential blessing. May I just remind you that in the Chinese language, the way that they have two symbols to express the word crisis. Say crisis. One of them means potential danger, and the other one means hidden opportunity. Isn't that interesting? That in every crisis there is a potential danger, but there is also a hidden opportunity. And what I want us to centralize our attention on is the fact that there is a hidden opportunity of a blessing in every place of wound in your life. Every time you get hurt, here's an opportunity. Here's an opportunity for a blessing to come in. If God put good things in you, how do you get it out except you become wounded? And remember that Jesus, he was wounded for our transgression. See, that was a blessing in the wound. We got blessed because of his wound. Don't just think that because people are sticking it to you like, ooh, child, how many folk, they're giving it to me at my work, and then I come home and I'm getting it at home too. Goody, goody, goody. There's a blessing in the womb. God built you to be able to handle it. You got a grace in your life to deal with everything that you are dealing with right now. I mean, this stuff, listen, if it does not kill you, it'll make you stronger. And you're still breathing, you still have a pulse today. That means that you're being made stronger. There is a blessing in the wound. I want you to be able to look at it in its proper perspective today and see that there is a blessing in the wound. Don't waste your time and your life walking around complaining about the wound. Start looking for the blessing, and it'll change how you deal with it. And so the angel of the Lord wrestled with Jacob until the breaking of day. Because you have to understand that breaking often surrounds a blessing. Whenever you're broken, there's a blessing that God is bringing in your life. It is through brokenness that God purifies our heart. Your heart, if your heart is filled with a whole lot of mess, God has to sometimes strip you down and break you to produce purity in your heart once again. Once you've gotten into a whole lot of stupid stuff and demonic activity, God has to break us in order to purify our heart. He's not trying to destroy you, he's trying to purify you. Brokenness is about bringing purity back into your heart so that you are unpretentious in the presence of God, so that you'll be real and say, God, this is me. I'm not trying to hustle you, God. You know, folk think that they can hustle God, and it's so foolish. You're fooling yourself. And so God knows how to break us. But here, notice it talks about they wrestle until the breaking of day. Say breaking of day. May I give you a revelation that every time God breaks you, he brings you into a new day. Are you listening to me? I said every time that God breaks you, you are stepping into a brand new day in your life. You're moving out of a phase and a period of your life where you've been living under a certain kind of struggle. Jacob had been living with a cursed nature all of his life, as a trickster, as a con artist, as one that caused pain in all of his relationship, and he had to wrestle with an angel all night long. After he finished that wrestling match, until the breaking of day, he was able to be let go, because God's only trying to bring you into a new day. And the breaking, it's about the breaking of day, not just having another day to have the sun to come up and you haven't been broken. When there is the breaking of day, God has to break us into a brand new day. There's a breaking that brings you into a new day. It is the breaking. It is the dawn of a new day. You come into a new dispensation. As you grow in your years in life, I don't care where you are, in your tender teens, your teachable 20s, your tireless 30s, your forcible 40s, your fearful 50s, your seasoned 60s, your settled 70s, your aching 80s, your nebulous 90s, or your pernicious 100s, wherever you are. In each one of those stages, I declare to you, as you get older, your body will start shifting, and your life has to be able to adjust. You will be a fool if you live in your 70s the way that you did in your teens. You can't eat in your 70s the way you ate in your teens. I dare you in your 70s to go down to the varsity and have dinner every day. You have to shift. Some folks with gray hair wave at me. I mean, whether it's colored or whatever. You know, think about Joseph, who was deeply wounded emotionally when his brothers plotted to kill him. I mean, how would that make you feel if your own kinfolks plotted to kill you and then put you in a pit and then profit from you because they sold you into slavery? They sold you into slavery. And so he was a wounded man. He was a rejected man. And yet, you know what he declared? Let me tell you, Joseph was a man of such magnanimity of spirit that Joseph said these words. He says, you meant it against me as evil, but God meant it for good. He found the blessing in the wound. The man was wounded emotionally. I can't tell you the number of people, I dare not ask the number of people that have been emotionally wounded because of a relative. I don't even want to ask that. I don't even want to ask those that have been hurt because they didn't feel the support, they didn't feel the love, they got put out of the house, they were rejected, they were physically abused, they were sexually abused, all kinds of things, and it happened at the hand of a relative. And you could be bitter and marked and live your life in negativity all of the days of your life unless you realize that there is a blessing in the womb. That what you tried to do to knock me out, to take me out, to destroy my life, I'm still here. I'm still breathing. I am a survivor. I am an overcomer. I've been a recipient of the grace of God, and who I am and what I am today is not because of you, but it is all because of Him, of what He has made me. And now the blessing that came out of that is I have a compassion for other people that are abused and other people that are hurt, and it has taught me how to love other people that have been in a place of pain. I know how to identify with them. I declare to you that there is a blessing in the womb. There's a blessing in the womb. There is a blessing in the womb. And let me tell you this, don't you dare stop until you discover that blessing. Now maybe if you realize the kind of man that your daddy was, maybe you'd understand the blessing and why he left. Some people mealy mouth about that, and maybe that was of God's greatest gift to you. Some of them are so undelivered that if the ones that stayed around caused so much damage that God might have been doing you a favor. I heard the Lord so clearly say to me in Psalm 119 and verse 71. It says these words: "It is good for me that I have been afflicted, that I may learn your statutes." Now, I don't know whether there's anybody who can say like the psalmist that it is good for me that I have been afflicted. Maybe if God had knocked you off of your high horse, we would have been on a road getting ready to bust hell wide open. And so he says, it is good for me that I have been afflicted, that I may learn your statute. And then we understand, if you just look 2 verses prior to that, in verse 6 to 7, the psalmist admits, he says, before I was afflicted, I went astray, but now I keep your word. And so he was saying that, you know, God, I thank you for afflicting me. I thank you for letting my stuff mess up on me, because you got my attention big time and you changed my life. I'm grateful. I am grateful. I'm grateful. You see, God is able to work good even out of a bad situation. And sometimes God has to make us sorrowful before he makes us glad. I mean, 2 Corinthians chapter 7 and verse 10 talks about how godly sorrow works repentance unto salvation, not to be repented of or to be regretted, but the sorrow that the world produces, death. See, there's a godly sorrow that works repentance. God knows how to make things happen in the life of your wayward child. He knows how to make them godly sorrow that will ultimately lead them to repentance. And sometimes you got to stop praying for God to stop letting things happen to your children so that he can make them godly sorrow and bring them back to keep them from hell. See, you have the power to turn your tragedy into triumph. You can still finish strong even though you have been wounded, because there is a blessing there, and I want to encourage you to look for it. There's a turnaround that is waiting to be discovered. There's a turnaround waiting to be discovered. And you have to realize that whatever I have been through in my life, I'm still determined I'm going to finish strong. So don't focus on your condition, focus on your calling. Focus on your calling. Focus on your calling. The Bible says in Psalm chapter 4 and verse 1, hear me when I call, O God of my righteousness. Thou hast enlarged me when I was in distress. Have mercy upon me and hear my prayer. When I was in distress, you enlarged me. That's the only way that you get bigger. That's the only way that God grows you, is to make you uncomfortable. If you stay in a comfort zone, you will never grow. And unless you attempt something beyond what you have already mastered, you will never grow. You have to be determined that unless I attempt something beyond what I have already mastered, I will never grow. And so the psalmist here is saying, you have enlarged me, God, when I was in distress. May I just help you to understand the picture of really what that is about? I believe that if you look at it like a woman who's in the distress of labor and delivery, And he's saying, you have enlarged me when I was in distress, when I was in labor trying to give birth to something. You enlarged me. Why did he enlarge you? So you could birth the blessing. You know, when a woman is in, she's in labor and in the process of delivering, her body is in distress. She's having contractions and she's being brought under constant stress every few seconds after a certain point. She's being brought under stress. God was getting you in a posture that the blessing that he put in you could actually be birthed out. May I tell you that whatever blessing God has placed in your life was not designed to stay in you. At some point, you got to give birth to it. And it's going to hurt. It's going to cost you something to birth the blessing. And he says, thou hast enlarged me. Thou hast enlarged me. Whenever you get pregnant with something of God, you're going to get enlarged. You're going to stretch on every side. Your bosom is going to increase. Your capacity to love is going to increase. Your body fluids, your blood volume is going to increase. The dimensions of your stomach, your waistline is going to disappear. It'll be a thing of the past. When I was in distress, you enlarged me. And may I just help you to understand that there's a blessing even in going through, in being bent out of shape. But if you don't understand what's happening to you, you will think that I'm just being bent out of shape. But no. Maybe God has you pregnant with something. You know, this is a place where seed is liberally spread out to you. And I know that there are folks here at Word of Faith that you are pregnant with stuff from God. You've been hearing stuff you've been dreaming about stuff, you've been thinking about stuff, you got ideas and creativity, and there's a pregnancy going. Something has been stretching in your spirit. You realize that there is more out here to be conquered. You realize that there's more that you could have. You realize that there is more than what you're currently experiencing, and there's a hunger on the inside of you that says, I deserve more, that there's something on the inside of me that is calling me to fulfill something on the inside of me that I've not yet reached. I haven't maxed out yet. I haven't reached my zenith or my pinnacle yet. Something, I'm still growing. God is still stretching me. And just when you thought that you couldn't go another step, just when you thought you couldn't make another sale, God stretches you. Just when you reach this level, God says, okay, now raise the bar. Unless you attempt something beyond that you've already mastered, you'll never grow. And when I was in distress, yes, when you do great things, it will put stress on you. Whether you have faith or not, hear me carefully. I don't want you to think that just because you have faith that means you don't have stress. Whoever told you that lied to you. God says, I enlarge you when you come under stress. I will stretch you. If God gives you a big blessing, you will have big stretching and you will come under big pressure. You don't grow big muscles unless you come under great distress, under great weight. And just because you shake while you're lifting your weights is not a sign that you lack faith. It's a sign that you are under stress. And God says, I'm the one who causes you to grow when you're in distress. I will enlarge you. And the only reason that he's enlarging you is so you can accommodate the blessing and get the blessing through. All of that pain that's in labor is about getting the blessing through. It's not even about getting the blessing in. You're trying to get it through. I'm trying to finish it. I'm trying to push it out. I'm trying to birth it. How frustrating is it to have something so rich that comes from God and then you realize, I can't get it out. How frustrating it is for women to be married to a man who is a lid and not a covering. And there are things that you want to do and they won't let you do it. And there's a frustration because something on the inside of you, you realize there's something in here that's designed to get out of me. I got to get it out. There's some things, let me just tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that you've got to get out of your life before you die. And may I tell you that if you don't get it out, you will die. You let a woman carry a baby overdue, and if she doesn't have an emergency C-section, she will die. When you carry things overdue, a pressure that is building on you, and the very thing that you gave life to will kill you if you can't get it out. God designed to cause things to hurt you until you get it out. he will enlarge you. And you might think that because I'm going through pain, and if you're sitting there crying and thinking that God is going to stop your pain because you're crying, you are sadly mistaken. God says, I understand what I'm doing. I'm enlarging you to be able to birth a blessing. If you don't go through something, you won't be able to get this thing through. And God's trying to get it through. May I tell you, one time I was in the project. You know, you've seen the karate folks. I took karate in Judah when I was younger, and I met a karate expert, and they had a board here for me to break. And I kept trying to hit it, and my hand was hurting. And I'm like, obviously I'm not doing something right. And I'm just hitting it and can't break it, because I'm thinking that if I just hit it right in this point, and I had all of my energy and concentration focused on this point on the board, until the master told me this. He said, your focus is in the wrong place. He says, you are focusing on the board. He said, your focus should be just beyond the board. Yes. You got to go through it. He says, you are stopping at the place where you are concentrating. He said, the board is not the goal. The goal is the distance just beyond the board. That's what you're trying to reach. And when he said that, I got the picture, and pow! I broke through. Listen, a revelation will cause a breakthrough. I had the breaking of day to happen to me because somebody gave some words that unlocked something for me in my life. Are you listening to me? And if you get the right keys, it will unlock something in your life that will open you up to another dimension, and you'll never be able to be held back by a board again. Are you listening? There's a power that comes in just the breaking of day. In the breaking of day, I'm telling you, when God breaks you, he will bring you into a brand new day. God will bring you into a brand new day. He will bring you into a brand new day. And I'm excited about what he does in bringing us into a brand new day, because he's an awesome, awesome God. I'm not finished, but I want to tell you this. The man by the name of Alexander the Great. Those of you that know anything about him, you know that he was not a Christian, but he was courageous. And may I tell you that you can learn things from courageous people even though they may not be Christian? We can learn something from Alexander the Great. Because Alexander the Great, he led an army halfway around the world, and he conquered the whole known world of his day. And you know what happened? When he found that there was no more areas to be conquered, Alexander the Great wept, because there were no more worlds to conquer. He was a fearless leader, and the only thing that he could not tolerate in any of his soldiers was cowardice. And one day he was holding court with his army in a great palace, and he was seated on his golden throne. And one after another, the soldiers were brought before him, and the sergeant of arms read off the accusation. And all around the sides of the room, there were soldiers standing at attention with their spears at their side, and no eyes shifted. Everybody looked straight. And one after another, the king, Alexander the Great, pronounced the sentence promptly and often without mercy, because nobody could be delivered from his hand, because he was the ruler of the entire world. He was a hard taskmaster, and frequently the sentence was death. And then they brought before him a Grecian boy, about 17 years old. And he was an unusual boy for that part of the world, because he had blonde hair and blue eyes, and a handsome young man. And the king looked down at him. Nobody shifted their eyes. But as the king looked at him, the king's face softened. And then they heard him ask, "What is his crime?" And the sergeant responded, "He was found fleeing in the face of the enemy and cringing in a cave." And the king's face hardened again, because he couldn't tolerate cowardice. And he looked at the boy again, and he was so young and such a fine-looking young man that the king's face softened again, and he said to the boy, "Son, what's your name?" And the boy answered, "Alexander." The smile left the king's face, and he asked him again, "What's your name?" The boy snapped to attention, and he said, "Alexander, sir." The king's face changed colors, and he asked him once again, "What is your name?" And the boy stammered, "Alexander, sir." And Alexander the Great bolted out of his chair, grabbed the man by the shirt, picked him up, and threw him down in the dirt. And he said, "Soldier, change your conduct or change your name." And I believe that the Lord is asking every man, every woman, every boy, and every girl, what's your name? Some of us are responding Christian. And he's asking us again, what is your name? And we're saying, Christian, my Lord. And God is saying, what is your name? Christian, my God. And then that's when you find a wrestling match that God grabs you up by the collar, picks you up, and throws you down in the dirt. And he says to you, dare you not tell people about my son? Dare you remain silent when the world causes evil to proliferate? Dare you sit there and do nothing while wicked people create havoc? Dare you not let your light shine? And then God leans from his throne and says, soldier, change your conduct or change your name.
Thank you for watching Power for Living with Bishop Dale C. Bronner. Until next time, God bless you.